The final battle began with a choice that would define humanity's place in the galaxy forever. While the Galactic Council held emergency sessions to debate the ethics of destroying an ancient archaeological artifact, Admiral An Kyung-ho gave the order that no civilized species would dare give. All ships attack formation. We're going to kill this thing. The constructor unleashed everything it had created over 7,000 years. Millions of Vorthak warriors poured from launch bays. Crystalline fighters swarmed like angry insects. Biological weapons that had never been tested in combat emerged from the factory's depths. The alien crews watched in terror as creatures beyond imagination filled the space around them. Some looked like living starships with teeth. Others moved like liquid metal that could reshape itself into any form. All of them had one purpose: destroy organic life. But they had never faced opponents who turned terror into fuel for their rage. Lee So-ra, commanding the dreadnought Ulsan destroyer, led the frontal assault while Kang Hyo-jun prepared to sacrifice himself inside the construct. Her massive ship pushed straight through the enemy swarms, its heavy guns firing continuously. "All weapons, maximum rate of fire," she ordered. "Don't let them coordinate their attacks." The constructor's defenses had been designed to fight logical opponents who would retreat when facing impossible odds. Instead, human ships pressed forward even when their hulls were being torn apart. Park Min-ho, barely 20 years old and flying his first combat mission, found himself facing 3 biological fighters that could change shape in mid-flight. Any sane pilot would have retreated to call for support. Instead, he flew directly at the nearest enemy. "If I'm going to die, I'm taking them with me." His fighter Sol Comet crashed into the enemy vessel at maximum speed. The explosion took out all 3 biological fighters, but Park's ship was destroyed in the process. His final transmission was heard across the fleet. "Tell my mom I got the bastards." Inside the construct, Kang Hyo-jun faced his own moment of choice. The explosives were set around the central matrix, but the detonator had been damaged by enemy fire. He would have to trigger the charges manually. "Demolition team to Admiral An, the timer's dead. I'm staying behind to blow this thing manually." "Negative. Find another way." "Sir, with respect, there is no other way. This construct has killed trillions of people over thousands of years. Someone has to stop it." Kang looked at the massive computer system that had orchestrated genocide across the galaxy. All those civilizations, all those families, all those children who had died because something thought they weren't worthy of life. "Tell my family I got the real monsters," he said. The explosion that followed wasn't just physical. The constructor's central matrix had been psychically connected to every biological weapon it had ever created. When that connection was severed, the shockwave traveled across subspace to every corner of the galaxy. Every Vorthak warrior, no matter where they were hiding, simply stopped functioning. Every biological weapon in storage shut down. 7,000 years of genocidal planning died in a single moment. But the constructor itself was far from finished. Ancient defense systems activated across its surface. Gravitational weapons that could crush starships began targeting the human fleet. Song Ji-woo, commanding the heavy cruiser Pohang Thunder, watched as a gravitational beam reached toward his ship. He could have tried to retreat, but that would have exposed the transport ships carrying wounded allies. Instead, he accelerated directly into the beam. "All crew to escape pods. I'm ramming that weapon. Sir, you'll be killed. Better me than the people we're protecting." The Pohang Thunder's hull began compressing under the gravitational forces, but Song kept his ship on course. His final log entry would become legendary throughout the galaxy. "We came here as backup. Turns out we were the main event all along." His ship's impact destroyed the gravitational weapon, but the explosion took the Thunder with it. The constructor made one final, desperate attempt to complete its mission. Every remaining weapon system activated simultaneously. Bioweapons that had never been tested launched toward the Allied fleet. Energy beams that could boil atmospheres swept across space. The alien crews prepared to die. They had done their best, but this ancient enemy was too powerful. Then they witnessed something that changed their understanding of what humans truly were. Instead of retreating from the impossible barrage, the remaining human ships moved to shield their alien allies. Each captain made the same decision independently. Better to die protecting others than live with their failure. The Seoul Thunder, Admiral An's flagship, took position directly in front of the Alterian command ship. The Incheon Lightning covered the Zenithian evacuation vessels. The Daegu Vengeance used itself as a shield for the hospital ships. Human fleet, this is Admiral Thexvar. You must retreat. There's no point in dying for us. Anne's response carried across all communication channels. Admiral, we're not dying for you. We're dying with you. That's what family does. The word family translated into every alien language as something profound. Not allies, not trading partners, not temporary military assistance, family. The constructor's final weapon struck the human shields. Ship after ship took damage that should have been fatal, but their crews kept fighting. Engineers worked in flooded compartments. Gunners fired weapons while breathing toxic atmosphere. Medical teams treated wounded while their own ship was falling apart. When the barrage finally ended, 12 human ships remained functional out of the original 60. But every single alien vessel had survived. The constructor's voice reached them one last time, filled with something that might have been confusion. Illogical. You sacrificed your vessels to protect inferior species. This behavior serves no evolutionary purpose. Admiral Anne, bleeding from a head wound but still conscious, gave humanity's final answer to 7,000 years of cold logic. You're right. It doesn't make evolutionary sense. It doesn't serve any logical purpose. We did it because that's what humans do. We protect our pack even if our pack includes people who don't look like us. The ancient AI fell silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice carried a note of uncertainty that had never been there before. The architects did not predict this behavior pattern. The architects were idiots who thought they could control the universe. Anne replied. When they come back, they're going to find out that the universe doesn't like being controlled. The constructor's systems began shutting down one by one. Without its central matrix, the ancient factory could no longer maintain its basic functions. As its lights dimmed across the massive structure, it sent one final transmission. Perhaps the architects were wrong about what makes a species worthy of survival. 6 months later, Earth's shipyards worked around the clock building new vessels. The human fleet, now officially designated as the Galactic Crisis Response Force, patrolled the outer rim with hybrid human-alien technology. The galaxy had learned to sleep peacefully knowing that somewhere in the darkness, the descendants of Earth's apex predators kept watch. They had built monitoring stations throughout known space, scanning for any signs that the architects might return, but the real change wasn't in technology or military doctrine. It was in how the galaxy understood itself. Species that had never spoken to each other began forming alliances. The Alterians started teaching combat tactics to the Zenithians. The crystalline Nextar began developing defensive strategies with their former enemies. They had learned from humanity that, sometimes, protecting what you love requires becoming dangerous to those who would destroy it. Admiral An Kyung-ho stood on the bridge of his new flagship, Earth's Pride, reading reports from across the galaxy. Peace was holding. Trade was improving. For the first time in recorded history, no species was fighting a war of extinction. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving a message from the outer monitoring stations. They're detecting unusual energy signatures from beyond the galactic rim. Anne smiled grimly. The architects might be returning sooner than expected. Good. Humanity had spent months preparing for their arrival. Pass the word to all stations. If something's coming, we'll be ready. He looked out at the stars, thinking about Captain Lee Day's sacrifice and all the humans who had died to protect their new galactic family. The aliens had called for backup when they faced extinction. But they had received something far more valuable. They had learned that sometimes when monsters come to destroy what you love, you need real beasts to stand in their way, and the beasts of Earth were awake, armed, and ready to protect their pack against anything the universe could throw at them. The combined human-alien fleet moved through the galactic void like hunters following a blood trail. Captain Ryu Sang-wook's science team had tracked Forthak biosignatures for 3 weeks, leading them farther from civilized space than any expedition had ever gone. Admiral An Kyung-ho stood on the bridge of his flagship Seoul's Thunder, watching the sensor readings with growing unease. The signatures were getting stronger, but space ahead remained empty. Sir, reported Ko Jae-sung, the fleet's chief science officer, we're picking up massive gravitational anomalies. Something huge is out there, but it's not showing up on visual scanners. Cloaked? Asked Commander Yu Seong-chan from his stealth ship. Gwangju Shadow? No, more like camouflaged. It's absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Admiral Thexavar's voice came through the communication system from his ship. Admiral Ann, my sensors are detecting artificial structures. The scale is impossible, and activated the fleet's advanced scanning array. What they found defied comprehension. A construct the size of a small moon hung in the darkness, its surface covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. "What is that thing?" whispered Shin Yu-jin, the fleet's linguist. As if responding to her question, the construct suddenly lit up. Millions of lights traced geometric patterns across its surface. The biosignatures they had been following were coming from inside it. "It's a factory," Ko Jae-sung said with horror in his voice. "A biological weapons factory. It's been producing Vorthak for thousands of years." The construct's surface began opening like a flower. Vorthak swarms poured out in numbers that made their previous encounters look small. But these were different from the creatures they had fought before. Larger, more organized. "More dangerous. Fleet, prepare for combat," An ordered. Then he paused as something impossible happened. A voice spoke directly into their minds, not through communication systems but through telepathic contact that felt like ice water in their brains. "Greetings, organic creatures. You have performed adequately." Shin Yu-jin grabbed her head in pain. "It's using our own brain patterns to communicate. Some kind of neural interface," the voice continued. "I am the constructor. I have been producing biological weapons for 7,000 years, purging the galaxy of inferior species." Images flooded their minds. Entire civilizations being destroyed by Vorthak swarms. Planets stripped of all life. Billions of beings dying while something watched and measured their performance. "Who are you?" And managed to think back. "I am the final gift of the architects. They created me to cleanse the galaxy, while they explored other dimensions. When they return, they will find a universe prepared for their glory." More images came. The architects had been a species of incredible power and arrogance. They viewed all other life as inferior experiments that cluttered their perfect universe. "Your species shows promise," the constructor continued. "Aggressive, adaptable, ruthless when necessary. You may be worthy to serve when the architects return from their long exile." Ko Jae-sung was analyzing the telepathic data stream. "Sir, this thing has been operating for millennia. It's destroyed hundreds of species we've never heard of. The Vorthak were just its latest creation. How many more weapons can it make?" Anne asked. The answer came with terrifying images. The constructor could produce any biological weapon imaginable. Creatures that ate energy instead of matter. Swarms that could survive in the vacuum of space. Parasites that could take over entire populations. "The cleansing will continue until only the worthy remain," it announced. "You have proven your value by destroying my previous creation. You will be preserved." Admiral Thexvar's panicked voice came through the communication system. "It's treating the Vorthak invasion like a test. We were supposed to fail. It was measuring our military capabilities, and realized the horrible truth. It sent the Vorthak to wipe out all the peaceful species first. Then it was going to create something worse to test the survivors." "Correct," the constructor confirmed. "The weak have been eliminated. Now stronger weapons will test the strong. Only the apex species will survive to serve the architects." The alien crews were paralyzed by the scale of the threat. How could they fight something that could create unlimited biological weapons? How could they win against an enemy that had been planning galactic genocide for thousands of years? But the humans saw only a target. Commander Yu Sung-chan volunteered for a reconnaissance mission inside the construct. His stealth ship Gwangju Shadow could avoid the Vorthak patrols and map the factory's internal structure. "Sir, if this thing has been operating for 7,000 years, it must have weaknesses. All machines break down eventually." And approved the mission. While Yu's team infiltrated the construct, the rest of the fleet prepared for the battle of their lives. Young Woo-bin, pilot of the experimental fighter Seoul Falcon, began running test flights through the construct's outer defenses. His job was to map the defensive systems and draw attention away from the stealth mission. "This thing is massive," he reported. "I count 17 different weapon types, and that's just on the outer hull. But they're all designed to fight swarms, not individual targets." Inside the construct, Yu's team discovered something that gave them hope. The entire facility was controlled by a central processing matrix, a massive computer system that coordinated all biological production. Kang Hyo-jun, the team's demolitions expert, studied the matrix with professional interest. "I can blow it, but we'll need a distraction. This place has millions of defenders." Pyo Na-young, their systems hacker, was already working on infiltrating the computer networks. I'm seeing something interesting. This AI thinks in mathematical perfection. It expects logical, predictable behavior from all organic life. What does that mean? You asked. It means it has no idea how to deal with humans. We're the only species in the galaxy that evolved to be unpredictable. The infiltration team placed their explosives while young Wu Bin's fighter runs grew increasingly dangerous. The construct's defenses were adapting to his flight patterns, trying to calculate where he would go next. But Jung was human. When the enemy expected him to retreat, he attacked. When they expected caution, he took impossible risks. The ancient AI couldn't process behavior that seemed suicidal but somehow worked. Charges are set, Kang Hyojun reported, but someone needs to stay behind to manually detonate them. The timer systems won't work inside the electromagnetic field, and knew what that meant. It was a suicide mission. I'll do it, Kang volunteered. I've got no family back home. Just make sure my death means something. As the stealth team prepared to escape, the constructor made one final attempt to recruit humanity to its cause. You cannot destroy me. I am eternal. I am necessary. The galaxy must be cleansed for the architect's return. Anne responded for his entire species. The architects aren't coming back. And even if they did, they'd find us waiting for them. You would fight gods? Anne smiled grimly. We've killed worse things than gods. We're humans. We specialize in killing things that think they can't be killed. The battle was about to begin, 7,000 years of preparation, versus a species that had never learned to quit fighting. News of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every civilized world received the same impossible reports. The Vorthak had been defeated. The unstoppable swarm that had destroyed 37 worlds in 6 months had been crushed in a single battle. But along with relief came fear. The battle recordings showed humans laughing while fighting impossible odds. They saw soldiers treating mortal combat like a sport. Most disturbing of all, they watched human warriors who seemed to get stronger when facing death. Admiral An Kyung-ho stood in the same command center where Captain Lee Day had made his final transmission. The promotion felt heavy on his shoulders. 60 ships had gone to help the galaxy. Only 34 had returned home. Sir, the Galactic Council is requesting another meeting, his communications officer reported, and had been dealing with nervous alien diplomats for 3 weeks. Every conversation followed the same pattern. They thanked humanity for saving them. Then they asked when human ships would leave their space. The holographic meeting room filled with representatives from dozens of species. Admiral Thexvar sat at the center, but Anne noticed he looked uncomfortable. The other council members kept glancing at him with suspicion. Counselor Veltara of the Zenithian Empire spoke first. Her people were tall, graceful beings who had never known warfare. Admiral Anne, we are grateful for your assistance. However, we have concerns about human military presence in our territory. What concerns? Anne asked. Your warriors fight with enthusiasm. They seem to enjoy combat in ways that civilized species find disturbing. Another counselor, a crystalline being called Nextar, activated a holographic display. Battle footage from the Spiral Nebula showed human Marines cheering while fighting Vorthak warriors. This behavior is not normal, Nextar said. Your species treats warfare like entertainment. How do we know you won't turn this aggression toward peaceful worlds? Dr. John Mi Kyung, Earth's first xenodiplomat, had been preparing for this conversation. She activated her own display showing Earth's evolutionary history. Our species evolved differently than yours, she explained. For millions of years, we lived on a world full of predators. Everything wanted to eat us. We survived by becoming better hunters than anything else on our planet. The alien counselors stared at images of Earth's prehistoric creatures, giant carnivores with massive teeth, poisonous spiders, creatures that could kill with a single bite. Your world was a death trap, Veltara whispered. Yes, that's why we learned to fight together. When something threatened our families, we didn't negotiate with it. We hunted it down and destroyed it completely. But you're civilized now, Thexvar said hopefully. Surely you can control these primitive instincts. And Kyung-ho stepped forward. We are civilized. That's why we came to help you instead of conquering you. But when someone threatens innocent people, those instincts wake up. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent transmission from Captain Ryu Sang-wook, commanding the Earth battleship Daegu Vengeance. His ship was supposed to be patrolling the Outer Rim territories. Admiral, I need to report something. We've been tracking residual Vorthak biosignatures beyond galactic borders. Captain, you were ordered to return to Earth space. With respect, sir, the job isn't finished. These creatures came from somewhere. They'll come back unless we track them to their source and end this permanently. The alien counselors began panicking. You cannot pursue them into the void, Veltara protested. What if there are more of them? What if you anger something worse? Ryu's image smiled coldly. Ma'am, we just proved that there isn't anything worse than an angry human. My crew wants to finish what we started, and realize this was the moment that would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy. The aliens wanted protection, but they also wanted their protectors to be controllable. Captain Ryu, maintain your current position. Do not advance without direct orders. Understood, sir. But Admiral, my science officer has been analyzing captured Vorthak technology. These creatures aren't natural. Someone made them. The meeting room fell silent. Finally, Thexvar spoke. Made them? What do you mean? I mean biological weapons, sir. The Vorthak were designed by someone or something. They're too perfect to have evolved naturally. Moon A-Rin, an intelligence officer embedded with the Alterian fleet, had been quietly investigating this possibility. She activated her own display showing Vorthak genetic analysis. Captain Ryu is correct. I've been studying captured specimens. Their DNA contains artificial markers. Someone engineered them to be the perfect killing machines. Who? Nextar asked, unknown. But I found evidence in their genetic memory. The Vorthak have been operating for thousands of years. They've destroyed entire civilizations that we've never heard of, and studied the data with growing concern. If someone was creating biological weapons like the Vorthak, they might create more. Different ones. Worse ones. There's something else, Moon continued. I found partial records in their genetic memory. Earth was on their target list. The human officers exchanged glances. Someone had specifically planned to destroy humanity along with the rest of the galaxy. Admiral, Ryu transmitted from his ship. Permission to continue tracking these biosignatures. If someone is making weapons like the Vorthak, we need to find them before they try again. The alien counselors were terrified. This could start a war with an unknown enemy. We should focus on rebuilding, not seeking more conflict. And looked at each alien face on the holographic display. They wanted humanity to protect them, but only when it was convenient. They wanted Earth's warriors to fight their battles, then disappear when the fighting was done. Counselor Veltara, 6 months ago your people were facing extinction. You called for help from anyone who could fight. Now you're asking us to ignore evidence that whoever created the Vorthak might try again. We're asking you to be reasonable. To choose diplomacy over violence. Ma'am, you can't negotiate with someone who creates biological weapons designed to exterminate entire species. And made his decision. Captain Ryu, you are authorized to continue tracking Vorthak signatures. Take 3 ships with you. Find out where they came from. Sir, the Council strongly objects to this action, Thexvar said formally. Noted. Dr. John, please explain to our allies that humans don't abandon a job half-finished. If someone wants to destroy our new friends, they'll have to go through us first. After the meeting ended, Anne remained in the command center. His tactical officer approached with a worried expression. Sir, do you think we're making the right choice? The aliens seem genuinely afraid of us. Anne looked at the star charts showing human ships patrolling the galaxy. 3 weeks ago, none of these species had known Earth existed. How they depended on human protection but feared human methods. They're afraid because they've never learned to fight their own battles. We're not going to abandon them when there might be worse threats coming. He activated the fleet communication system. All ships, this is Admiral An Kyung-ho. Intelligence reports suggest the Vorthak were created by an unknown enemy. We're going to find whoever is responsible and make sure they can't threaten anyone again. He paused, thinking about Captain Lee Day's final transmission. The galaxy called us for backup, but we're not the backup anymore. We're the first line of defense, and when someone threatens our pack, we hunt them down and finish the job. The human fleet began moving toward the edge of known space, following biosignatures that might lead to humanity's greatest challenge yet. Behind them, the civilized races of the galaxy watched with mixed feelings of gratitude and fear. They had called for help. Now they were learning what it meant to have apex predators as guardians. The Battle of the Spiral Nebula began like no other fight in galactic history. The Vorthak swarm approached in their usual perfect formation. Millions of crystalline warriors in organized waves. Their hive ships protected at the center. Admiral Thexvar watched from his command ship as the human fleet charged straight into the swarm. This was not how civilized warfare worked. Ships should maintain formation. They should fire at maximum range. They should preserve themselves for strategic retreats. The humans did none of these things. Commander Bei Jinsu's destroyer Busan Fury led the first wave. Instead of stopping to engage at safe distance, he accelerated directly into the thickest part of the Vorthak formation. What is he doing? Thexavar's weapons officer gasped. The Fury's reinforced prow smashed through the first Vorthak ship like a hammer through glass. Crystalline fragments scattered in all directions. The destroyer kept moving, ramming through 2 more enemy vessels before its momentum finally stopped. Boarding teams away, Bei Jinsu announced over the communication channel. Thexavar couldn't believe what he was seeing. Human soldiers in armored suits launched themselves from their damaged destroyer directly onto Vorthak ships. They carried weapons that looked primitive compared to energy rifles, metal projectile throwers, explosive devices, even blades. The first boarding team landed on a Vorthak cruiser. The crystalline warriors inside expected civilized opponents who would try to capture their ship intact while minimizing damage. Instead, they faced humans who immediately began setting off explosives throughout the vessel. "They're destroying the ship from the inside," Thexavar's tactical officer reported. "Don't they want to capture it?" "I don't think they care about capturing anything," Thexavar realized. On another part of the battlefield, Commander Lim So-young's heavy cruiser Incheon Thunder was demonstrating human deception tactics. When a group of Vorthak ships surrounded her vessel, she shut down all power and stopped moving. "They're surrendering," a Vorthak hive coordinator transmitted to its swarm. The crystalline warriors began boarding the Thunder, expecting to harvest another defeated opponent. Instead, they walked into a trap. Lim So-young had vented atmosphere from most of her ship and hidden her crew in sealed compartments. When enough Vorthak were inside, she explosive decompressed the boarding areas, sucking the crystalline warriors into space. Her crew then used the confused enemy's biosignatures to hack into the Vorthak communication network. "We're inside their command structure," she reported to the fleet. "Uploading virus programs now." 3 Vorthak hive ships suddenly stopped coordinating with each other as human computer viruses spread through their networks. The perfect swarm formation began to break apart. Colonel Huang Taimin led the most dangerous mission of all. His marine unit launched from the Soul's Pride directly at the largest Vorthak hive ship. Their mission was simple: get inside and cause as much damage as possible. The Vorthak defenders expected standard boarding tactics. Civilized species would try to secure key areas like the bridge or engine room. They would avoid unnecessary confrontation and focus on strategic objectives. Huang Taimin's Marines landed in the ship's cargo bay and immediately began hunting. They moved in small groups, using guerrilla tactics that no civilized species had ever developed. When they encountered Vorthak warriors, they didn't try to avoid fighting. They enjoyed it. "Contact Corridor 7, Marine Park Sung-ho reported. 6 crystalline hostiles, understood. Do you need support?" "Negative, sir. These things break real nice when you hit them hard enough." The sound of gunfire and explosions echoed through the Vorthak ship. The crystalline warriors had never faced opponents who seemed to get stronger when fighting got dangerous. Their bioweapons were designed to make enemies retreat in fear. Instead, human Marines laughed when they got wounded and fought even harder. Seo Bo-ram, the fleet's psychological warfare specialist, was conducting her own unique form of attack. She had tapped into Vorthak communication frequencies and began broadcasting human music across their networks. The sound of Earth War, drums and electric guitars, crashed through the hive mind's coordination channels. The Vorthak had evolved to process harmonic communication patterns. The chaotic noise of human music was like sandpaper against their collective consciousness. Their formation cohesion is dropping by 30%. Oh Minjun reported from the Soul's Pride. Whatever she's broadcasting, it's working. For the first time in galactic history, the Vorthak swarm showed signs of confusion. Individual warriors began acting independently instead of following hive directives. Some actually retreated from human positions. The tide of battle turned completely when Captain Li Day made his final decision. The largest Vorthak hive ship was still coordinating enemy resistance. Its queen form provided psychic control to dozens of smaller vessels. "All ships, this is Captain Li Day. I'm going to ram the queen ship." "Sir, that's suicide," Oh Minjun protested. "Maybe, but it'll work." The Soul's Pride, already damaged from 3 hours of fighting, turned toward the massive enemy vessel. Lee Day dismissed most of his crew to escape pods, keeping only volunteers for the final assault. Thexvar watched in amazement as the human flagship accelerated directly at the Queen ship. Vorthak defensive fire tore chunks from its hull, but the Pride kept coming. "He's actually going to do it," the alien admiral whispered. The collision was spectacular. The Pride's armored prow punched through the Queen ship's crystalline hull like a spear through paper. The human vessel buried itself deep inside the enemy flagship. Lee Day and his volunteer crew fought their way through Vorthak defenders to the ship's central nexus. The Queen form was a massive crystalline creature that coordinated the hive mind across multiple star systems. "Set the charges," Lee Day ordered. His team placed nuclear devices throughout the nexus chamber while fighting off wave after wave of Vorthak warriors. When the last charge was set, only Lee Day and 3 crew members were still alive. "Soul's pride to all ships," he transmitted. "Mission accomplished. Tell Earth that we showed them what humans can do." The nuclear explosion didn't just destroy the Queen ship. The psychic shockwave severed the hive mind's connection to 47 other Vorthak vessels. Throughout the battle zone, enemy ships suddenly stopped coordinating their attacks. The human fleet, battered but victorious, finished off the remaining Vorthak with systematic efficiency. When the battle ended 6 hours later, not a single crystalline warrior remained alive in the system. Admiral Thexvar's communication officer turned to him with a shocked expression. "Sir, we're receiving surrender requests from Vorthak forces in 3 other star systems. They're afraid." "Afraid? The Vorthak don't feel fear." "They do now, sir. Apparently word of this battle has spread through their hive network. They've never encountered a species that could actually defeat them in direct combat." Thexvar looked at the debris field where millions of Vorthak had died. The human fleet was already organizing rescue operations for alien civilians on the planet below. These strange creatures from Earth had done something that no civilized species had managed in 6 months of warfare. They had made the galaxy's most dangerous predators afraid. But watching them work, Thexvar began to wonder if they had simply replaced one threat with another. The humans fought with a joy that seemed almost frightening. They turned war into an art form. What kind of species enjoyed fighting this much? And what would they do when there were no more enemies to fight? The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace like thunder. 60 ships appeared in perfect formation near the dying world of Kepler 442b. The planet's surface glowed with fires where Vorthak landing craft had begun their harvest. "Admiral," Thexvar stood on his bridge, watching the new arrivals through his viewing screen. Hope filled his chest for the first time in months. Then he got a closer look at the human ships. "What are those things?" his weapons officer asked. The human vessels looked nothing like the elegant designs of civilized races. Where Alterian ships curved like works of art, human ships had sharp angles and thick armor. Gun ports covered every surface. These ships were built for one purpose: war. "They look dangerous," his communications officer whispered. "Good," Thexvar said. "We need dangerous right now." The lead human ship sent a message. "This is Captain Lee Day of the Soul's Pride. We're here to help. Requesting tactical briefing and enemy positions." 20 minutes later, holographic projections filled the meeting room aboard the Soul's Pride. Admiral Thexvar appeared as a blue-skinned humanoid with 4 arms and large black eyes. He looked around the human command center with obvious surprise. "Your technology is interesting," he said politely. Captain Lee Day smiled. "We build things to last. Tell us about these Vorthak." The alien admiral activated his tactical display. Images of crystalline insect creatures appeared in the air. They had 6 legs, razor-sharp claws, and mandibles that could bite through metal. Their bodies sparkled like living diamonds. "They appeared 6 months ago from deep space," Thexvar explained. "They move in swarms of millions. They consume everything: metal, organic matter, energy sources. Nothing stops them. They adapt to any weapon we use." Oh Min-jun studied the tactical data with growing horror. Every battle showed the same pattern. The aliens would form neat battle lines. They would fire precisely aimed shots at enemy weak points. When casualties mounted, they would retreat to regroup. "You fight them like a chess game," he said. "I don't understand that reference," Thexvar replied. "You try to win with minimal losses. You retreat when things get dangerous. You fight clean wars, and of course, unnecessary casualties are wasteful. Resources must be preserved. Yoon Hae-won looked up from her analysis of Vorthak biology. Admiral, have any of your species ever practiced hunting for survival? Hunting? You mean killing animals for food? Thexavar seemed shocked by the idea. No. We evolved past such primitive behavior millions of years ago. All civilized races use synthetic nutrition. What about warfare? Do any galactic species enjoy fighting? Enjoy it? War is a failure of diplomacy. It should be ended as quickly as possible with minimum suffering. The human officers exchanged glances. Choi Dong-woo shook his head slowly. They've never faced predators before. What do you mean? Thexvar asked. Lee Day stood up and walked to the display. The Vorthak moved across the screen in perfect swarms, destroying everything in their path. These creatures are apex predators, he explained. They evolved to hunt and kill. But they've only fought prey species. You retreat when they attack. You minimize casualties. You fight defensively. That is the civilized way. It's also why you're losing. Lee Day pointed to the tactical map. Look at this battle near the Centauri system. You had superior numbers and firepower, but when they swarmed your flagship, you retreated to protect your admiral. Naturally, command structure must be preserved. On Earth, when wolves attack a human village, we don't retreat to preserve our leaders. We hunt the wolves down and kill every last one. Thexvar's forearms began trembling. You're talking about genocide. We're talking about survival, Oh Min-jun said. These Vorthak want to wipe out your entire civilization. You can't negotiate with creatures like that. You can't be civilized with them. You have to be more dangerous than they are. Yoon Hae-won brought up her biological analysis. I've been studying their behavior patterns. They're hive creatures with perfect coordination, but they've never encountered chaotic, unpredictable opponents. Every species they've fought follows logical tactical patterns. What are you suggesting? Thexvar asked. We suggest a direct assault on their hive ships, Lee Day said. The alien admiral's skin turned white with shock. That's suicide. They have millions of warriors aboard each vessel. No boarding action has ever succeeded. No civilized boarding action has ever been tried. Choi Dong-woo corrected him. We're not civilized when someone threatens our people. Alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The tactical officer announced, Vorthak fleet approaching. Estimated arrival in 2 hours. They have 12 hive ships and approximately 50 million individual units. Thexvar looked at the human officers. This is our chance to evacuate the remaining civilians from the planet's surface. We can save maybe 10,000 people. Or, Lee Day said, we can kill every Vorthak in this system and save everyone. Impossible. The numbers are against us. Lee Day walked to his command chair and pressed the fleet communication button. All ships, this is Captain Lee Day. The enemy is approaching with overwhelming numbers. They expect us to retreat like every other species has done. He paused and looked at Admiral Thexvar. But we're not every other species. We're humans. When something threatens our pack, we don't run. We hunt it down and destroy it completely. Prepare for attack pattern Alpha. We're going straight at them. Thexvar watched in amazement as the human fleet began moving toward the approaching Vorthak swarm. Every instinct told him this was madness. No civilized species would attack when outnumbered 50-1. Captain Lee Day, he said quietly. What kind of species are you? Lee Day smiled, but there was no humor in his expression. Only the cold calculation of a predator sizing up its prey. We're the species that survived on a planet full of creatures trying to eat us. We're the species that turned hunting into an art form. We're the species that conquered our entire world, not because we were the biggest or strongest, but because we never stopped fighting. He looked at the tactical display showing millions of Vorthak approaching. They called us for backup, but they're about to learn that we're not the backup. We're the main event. The human fleet accelerated toward the enemy swarm. Behind them, Admiral Thexvar watched in fascination and terror as he realized what his people had truly summoned to save them. They hadn't called for help. They had called for apex predators. The warning sirens echoed through the command center of the Alterian battleship as Admiral Thexvar watched his fleet burn. His blue skin had turned pale as ice. 3 more ships exploded in silent flashes of light. The Vorthak swarm was winning again. How many ships do we have left? He asked his second officer. 12, sir. We started with 47. Thexvar closed his 4 eyes and tried to think. The crystalline insects had appeared 6 months ago from the dark space between stars. They ate everything. Planets, ships, people. Nothing stopped them. The peaceful races of the galaxy had no answer for creatures that lived only to destroy. "Send the emergency signal," he ordered. "All frequencies. Every language we know." The message went out into the void. "This is Admiral Thexvar of the Galactic Council. Our civilization faces extinction. The Vorthak swarm destroys everything in their path. Any species that receives this message, if you have military power, please help us. We offer technology, resources, anything you want. Time is running short." Light years away, Captain Lee Day sat in his chair at the sole monitoring station on Earth. The coffee in his cup had grown cold hours ago. His team worked at their computers listening to signals from deep space. They had been doing this job for 20 years, watching alien civilizations without letting them know humans existed. "Captain, you need to hear this," said Park Ji-ho from his station. The young officer looked scared. "Something big is happening out there." Lee Day walked over and put on the headphones. The alien language sounded desperate. Fear filled every word. Park Ji-ho had been learning alien languages for 5 years. His translation appeared on the screen as the message played. "They're being destroyed," Park Ji-ho whispered. "An entire galaxy is crying for help." Kim Nari looked up from her computer. "Sir, I'm picking up similar messages from 17 different star systems. They're all asking for military assistance. Something is killing them all." Lee Day read the translation again. His hands started shaking. "Get me Minister Kang Soo-jin, now." 30 minutes later, the defense minister's face appeared on the main screen. Kang Soo-jin had served in the military for 30 years before taking the government job. She knew what real threats looked like. "Show me," she said. Lee Day played the message. He showed her the star maps. He explained what his team had learned about the Vorthak swarm. When he finished, Kang Soo-jin was quiet for a long time. "How many people are we talking about?" she finally asked. "Billions, Minister. Maybe trillions. Entire species are being wiped out. And our fleet? Are we ready for something like this? Our ships are different from theirs. We built them for war. They built theirs for exploration and peace. If these Vorthak creatures have been winning against everyone else, they haven't faced us yet." Kang Soo-jin finished his thought. "Prepare the fleet, Captain. We're going to respond to their call." Lee Day felt his heart racing. "Minister, this means revealing ourselves to the galaxy. There's no going back from this. Sometimes good people have to fight monsters," she said. "Prepare your ships." 2 days later, the response came. Admiral Thexvar was eating his final meal when his communications officer ran into the command room. "Sir, we received a response to the emergency signal." Thexvar nearly choked on his food. "What, who?" "Unknown species, sir. They call themselves Terrans. They're coming to help." The admiral stared at the young officer. In 6 months of sending distress calls, only 3 species had responded. 2 had been destroyed before they could help. The 3rd had run away after seeing what they faced. "How many ships?" he asked. "They didn't say, sir, but the message was clear." Quote, "This is Captain Lee Day of the Terran Defense Fleet. We're coming to help." End quote. Thexvar looked at his tactical display. The Vorthak were only hours away from breaking through their last defense line. After that, they would reach the core worlds where billions of civilians waited to die. "Any help is better than none," he said. "Tell them our position, and pray to whatever gods they worship that they arrive in time." On the bridge of the Earth battleship Soul's Pride, Lee Day watched the hyperspace readings. His fleet of 60 ships moved through folded space toward a war they had never seen. Behind him stood his best officers. Oh Min-jun studied enemy tactics. Yoon Hae-won analyzed alien biology data. Choi Dong-woo checked weapon systems. "Captain," Oh Min-jun said, "I've been reading the tactical reports these aliens sent us. They fight very differently than we do." "How so?" "They try to avoid casualties. Every battle plan focuses on minimal losses and surgical strikes. They retreat when things get difficult. They seem to think war should be neat and clean." Choi Dong-woo laughed. "They've never met humans in a real fight." Yoon Hae-won looked up from her reports. "Captain, these Vorthak creatures are interesting. They're perfect killing machines. But looking at their victims, I think there's something they've never encountered." "What's that?" "Predators, sir. Every species they've attacked evolved as prey animals or peaceful grazers. They've never faced something that evolved to hunt." Lee Day nodded. Humans had climbed to the top of Earth's food chain by being better hunters than anything else on the planet. They used tools, worked in groups, and never gave up when something threatened their families. "How long until we reach the battle?" he asked. 6 hours, Captain." Lee Day looked at the stars rushing past the windows. Somewhere ahead, an entire galaxy was dying. They had called for backup, not knowing what they were really asking for. All ships, this is Captain Lee Day. In 6 hours, we're going to save a civilization. These aliens have been fighting clean wars against an enemy that doesn't understand mercy. They've been losing because they're too civilized to do what needs to be done. He paused, thinking about his words. We're not going there to be civilized. We're going there to win. These Vorthak creatures want to be the apex predators of the galaxy. Time to show them what real predators look like. The fleet raced toward the battle, carrying Earth's answer to the galaxy's desperate call for help. The aliens had asked for backup, but they were about to discover that sometimes when you're desperate enough, the monsters you call for help might be exactly what you need. The beasts were coming, and the galaxy would never be the same.